everything good with the sound back there in the stream and the presentation, so everything's good. So first of all, thanks for Coimbra Blockchain organization. Sorry, that was a mistake, because we also do Braga Blockchain and we are all very friends of one another. So one of the things that we want to first acknowledge is the organization of these events. It's really important to really try to foster a community related to blockchain, to Web3 space. And it's really nice to come from Braga, where I'm living right now and where I work, here to Coimbra, to another event of Web3, and try to foster community and learnings throughout the country. So it's really nice to have these kind of events. And first of all, I think that we should give a round of applause to the organization of Coimbra Blockchain, because it's a great thing. Now that's out of the way, my presentation is just a brief introduction into crypto assets. This is a perspective of someone who is most and foremost a programmer. So if you gave this talk with an accountant or a lawyer or an investor, you probably would have a very different topic or a very different approach to the topic. But as always, I need to do that disclaimer. Financial advice. Every name that I mention, it's not really something that I endorse. It's just something that I find funny or interesting from a learning perspective. So be careful. Don't go buy things just because I said some random names here. And a brief outline of what I'll be discussing. I'll try to describe or understand what is the status quo of crypto assets here in Portugal. Then talk about a bit about Bitcoin, which is the OG or the first kind of crypto asset that we know about. Then talk about Ethereum, because it's one of my, what I think is one of the inflection points of the technology and of the entire space that we are in. And then the fourth point is just a bunch of slides about really cool crypto assets that I find interesting, but we can go through that if we have the time or not. But these are the three main topics that I wanted to address as a basis to understand crypto assets, and the others are fun stuff that I think might be worth looking also into. So crypto assets. We have someone here in the audience, Mario, which when I ask him something, the first thing that he does is Google it. So I took inspiration from that and did something similar and tried to Google both information from Bank of Portugal or CMVM about crypto assets to understand what the hell I was talking about. So basically this is the definition that they gave us back from a working group that they established in 2020. And as you can see, it's digital assets that somehow are connected with cryptography and a distributed ledger. And if we want to dig deeper, what is digital asset, I think we need to understand what's an asset. And at least for me, the thing that comes first to mind is like a company. What is the asset inside the balance sheet of a company? It's like money in the bank, the computers that we buy to work, machinery, all that stuff. So at the end of the day, when we are talking about assets, we are usually talking about something that has economic benefits sometime down the line. And that can be making money or saving money or allowing the production of a value or a good that we are going to then exchange for money. So a crypto asset is basically thinking about assets that live on a blockchain, on a distributed ledger most of the times. That can be Bitcoin, it can be a number of other kind of blockchains. But at the end of the day, there are very specific use cases that the regulators think of when we talk about crypto assets. So the first and foremost is the original from the Bitcoin, like a means of payment. We can now discuss if Bitcoin is a means of payment, if it is a store of value. There's many use cases that we can try and figure out and even discover. The other one that was, I would say that most of the thinking about cryptocurrencies when they first came into the conscience of the public was very much in 2017, 2018 with the ICOs, when a lot of companies and a lot of projects started to emit tokens as a way to funding prospective businesses based on the blockchain, being that a payment gateway or an exchange or whatever you can think of. And that was the really first time when there was so much money being thrown at the ecosystem that the regulators started to say, wait, we need to check out what this is. Is this a security? Is this a currency? What the hell is this? And I think that until this day, we still don't really know, or the regulators are still catching up with all the things that are happening on the crypto space. And then we also have these two different uses. I think one of them is very much more aligned with like funding the commons and things like Gitcoin grants or something like that, where there's not really an investment in a company or a product, but it's much more like reward open source projects, other kinds of stuff. And finally, what we all think of when we hear about blockchain, like the degen part of it, making money, 10x, 1000x, whatever you think about. And I think, again, thinking from this perspective, it's really important for us to have this perspective of the regulators and from the builders or people building stuff in this space, because for me, this is not something that I take into consideration most of the time. This is something that I do stuff, then I probably need to go talk with lawyers or whatever to understand what the hell did I just do, and do I need to register this with something who I need permission for if I'm interfacing with some kind of real world usage. But I think that we should all be aware that we are not right now, the area or the Web3 space is already very much more mature with a lot more of institutional money and a lot more eyes on us. So it's really important to understand what we are being compared at. And I think that for most of the tokens, what they need, or most of the crypto assets, what they need to justify is they are not securities. And they need to understand why they are not securities. And if we go to the broadest definition possible, mainly from the United States, is that it cannot be a promise of making money in the future, because if that's it, then it's a security and we need to be regulated with proper authorities, and then it's really a very complicated matter that really it's beyond the scope of what I'm trying to explain here. But I think that even that, this is something that we need to be mindful of, because the natural road is for having more bottlenecks into the operations in the crypto space if we don't be mindful of this kind of interface that we have with current regulation. So thinking more specific into what are crypto assets, I would say that everything starts with the Bitcoin. So this is the white paper for Bitcoin, and you can read there. It's a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It's pretty easy to understand what was the original purpose of that. And I think that for those here that maybe don't know about it or never really dug deep into what's the Bitcoin, it's basically a ledger that accounts for all transactions. So basically everything that exists in the block of the Bitcoin is a transaction between party A and party B. And then we have the special transaction from the miners that for each block that is mined, it's generating Bitcoin for that specific miner. So basically, if we try to visualize what is Bitcoin or what is a blockchain, it's basically a book that has table A Alice with 100 Bitcoins, table B Bob with 0 Bitcoins, and then we have a transfer from 50 Bitcoins from Alice to Bob, and that's it. It's just a very long and very extensive how do you say this in English? Like a collection of transactions. And I think that I will not go into detail of how this works, or I think there's better resources online that you can go, and I really encourage you to try to understand like what's really behind the words or the buzz of Bitcoin, even if you don't have the background on the programming side of it or the mathematics. I usually recommend this video from 3 Blue 1 Brown. I think it's a lot, 20-25 minutes, I think it's one of the best use of 25 minutes that you can have. So I would encourage you to check it out if you have some more need for details here, or if you want to be more knowledgeable about what actually is a blockchain, and in particular, Bitcoin. I'm not going to play this. Basically, moving along to the Ethereum, I think that the main thing when we think about Ethereum is Bitcoin with programming on top of it. So the really why I'm mentioning this is that is the first time that we have like a paradigm shift in the Web3 space, and with the programming that we got with Ethereum, that basically means that we are running a decentralized computing platform worldwide that enable a lot of creation, a lot of creativity juices to come up to the top. And I think that the main innovation there is the smart contracts. Then we have, I could be talking about other blockchains that also implemented smart contracts, but I think that the step from going from 1 to 10 was exactly going from Bitcoin, which is just like a ledger that enables moving funds from A to B, into Ethereum that allow us to program if-else statements in a global computer and enable us to program behaviors and allow parties to interact based on the reliability of the blockchain and the trustless environment that enables. And really, like, the bets are off what we can accomplish when we add this programming ability to the blockchain paradigm. And I think that this is exactly what bootstrapped the Web3 concept that we talk about nowadays. And this is my interpretation of it. I think that at the end of the day, someone can tell me Web3 is just a marketing theme, and I completely agree with that. But in my mind, when I think about Web3 and what Ethereum and smart contracts enable, it's about these three words, about openness, trustlessness, and permissionless, and how these are different primitives that if we try to base relationships, contracts, interactions between two parties in this kind of mindset, it enables a different kind of problem solving and a different kind of solution space than we have until now. So this is the part where I'm going to start talking about random assets, just because they are very fun, and I think it's really a testament to think about. This is something that was enabled in 2015, and we are like 7 years into it, and there's a lot going on, very interesting concepts being explored. If they are going to be a scam or go to zero or be the next thing that's going to save the world, I'm not putting any money on it, but I think it's at least interesting from a knowledge perspective and exploring the future, looking into this kind of crypto assets and see what they can do. So I think that the first thing that I need to mention is layer 1 tokens. So Bitcoin and Ethereum are both layer 1s, but they are not the only ones. I think that basically there are these three kind of things that I think about layer 1 tokens. The first ones are the privacy ones, just because one of the main advantages of Bitcoin is that everything is public. It's a terrible way of laundering money if you are a drug dealer, because everybody can see your transactions with access to a web browser, even with Tornado caches and all that kind of things. It's basically a very bad way to think that you are anonymizing yourself using a public ledger. And privacy L1 tokens, I think they introduce some cool concepts of cryptography that enable a lot of things that I think are very interesting. Then you got like memes, as everything on the internet, like Dogecoin was random project that some dudes did with Doge. I don't know how to describe it better than this. It's like maybe crypto school or something like that. Random stuff happens on the internet. I will say no more. And then the other ones are more serious, like alternatives to Bitcoin or Ethereum. And basically it's about design solutions. So it's trading scalability, for decentralization, for security, I think. But basically there are a lot of approaches, and I would not say that one is right or one is other is wrong. It's basically understanding that there are multiple problems that can be solved with this. I think that the next thing that we really need to mention is ERC20, just because this was the big boom of tokens, and a lot of the big names that we hear nowadays are basically ERC20 tokens. This is basically a smart contract that has a balance and that enables interactions between parties, and it's based on Ethereum, but there are also a lot of implementations in other blockchains. But this was very much connected with the ICO boom that I talked a bit before, and I think it's really when we started to increase the usage of blockchain and especially Ethereum, because we enable a lot of new problems that are not to be solved or to people try to solve it. Basically, when we think of this is basically a smart contract that has a very specific interface, and this is the main point for me about blockchain. It's the composability aspect of it. So by being on this standard, we enable a lot of people or smart contracts talking with each other, and a lot of behaviors that each player can coordinate and generate other stuff. So I think that the main thing here is that from a programming perspective, this is very simple. This is like an API, a convention like REST or something like that. But what it enables is really what's interesting. And talking about crypto tokens, we need to talk about what happens or where those are exchanged, or how we can leverage like our euros or our dollars into crypto assets. The main on-ramp from fiat to crypto, it's basically centralized exchange. That these are basically, I don't know, like grocery shop or something like that. You give your card or you give your bank transfer, and that puts you in a platform where then you can trade things in an order book, like people are selling, people are buying, you have counterparties, and it's basically a very big business with billions of dollars already in changing hands, and very much the first approach that most people interact with crypto. After you are onboarded on crypto, one different kind of paradigm is the decentralized exchanges. I want just to mention like the OG, like the first one that I remember was Ether Delta, and that's basically also an order book where you have someone saying, I want to sell this by this price, I want to buy this for this price, and that enables the transactions. But the real evolution here is with something like Uniswap, where instead of having an order book, you have an automated market maker, where basically you have a liquidity pool, and you can interact with that liquidity pool, and based on some formulas, you can get a price for your assets. So instead of you making a transaction saying, I want to sell something, you just interact with the liquidity pool, and you can get the assets and have some slippage, but it's a completely different paradigm, and it enables like things like yield farming, because people need to provide liquidity to the pool. So the assets that we need to put there, being stable coins or Bitcoin or Ethereum, that enables people to take a fee and basically make their crypto somehow yield something at the end of the day. I mentioned stablecoins. They, I think, are the main consumer product that really arose from all these things. Basically, stablecoins is something pegged to a fiat kind of unity of accountants. Usually, we have USD. I think that I give a few examples here, like fiat-backed. It's basically I have $10 on my pocket, and I emit 10 Z tokens that you can redeem for $1. And basically, you trust me that I really have $10 on my pants, and I'm not just wasting everything on beer or something like that, and maybe you don't have your money. So crypto-backed is very much over-collateralization strategy. So basically, it's saying, give me 15 Bitcoins and I'll give you 10 Ethereums because the price matches somehow or some way, and I'm getting some extra value from you that in case there's a imbalance between the prices, I can liquidate in a like automatic fashion and not be exposed to the risk of you not paying the loan. Community backed is basically that, like crypto assets trying to back the value of something that exists in the real world, that instead of having 10 euros, basically I'm saying I have a gold bar on my pocket and you'll trust me because I emitted Pax Gold or something like that. And finally, the algorithmically back the stablecoins. I think the most famous case was Terra and how they blew up. I will not go into detail, but it's basically just you have an equation where something is worth something, and that basically works as long as there is liquidity on both sides of the equation. If X equals Y, you can create more Y, and then you can sell it for X if everything is liquid in both sides. But in the moment that one of the terms of the equation goes like people don't trust one of them, then this breaks and it's like a dead spiral, everybody loses money. It's still something that's very new, and we still don't know if this is something that can be solvable or if it's just bad design. And just as a counterparty, like central banks' digital currencies, this is basically a blockchain, but in Banco de Portugal or the European Bank or in Fed. It's basically this. Right now, the monetary system works between intermediaries. So our money is not with the government, it's with a bank, and the bank owns money to the government, and the government loans money to the bank, then that loans money to us. The concept of central bank digital currencies is that I can have like an account with the central bank, and since they create the money, it's like no intermediaries. And that also is a bit like stablecoin, but then you have everything on the servers of some central bank. And I'll probably skip a bit about this. Utility tokens, it's like a crypto token that basically enables some kind of function. I give two examples, like the graph, where it's basically querying the blockchain, you need to pay with the graph tokens, or BNB, which is the Binance token, where it enables to have like less fees when you are transacting in Binance. So utility tokens is somehow something that enables you a function. It's not just the monetary value that it holds. Governance tokens is something that you use to coordinate people across a purpose. That was very much famous with those automated market makers that I talked about. So Maker, it's the issuer of a stable coin, and Uni, it's the token from Uniswap. So basically the perspective is that you can vote with your tokens to influence like who gets loans, how the fees occur on Uniswap or something like that. And just I'll finish here with NFTs, just because I think it's one of the latest iterations. It's basically what you have instead of having a fungible token with Bitcoin, where one Bitcoin is equal to Bitcoin, you start to having non-fungible tokens. So I don't know, a piece of art, the usual case is like Mona Lisa, not equal to a copy of the Mona Lisa. It's basically trying to determine the provenance of the assets instead of Bitcoin, where you don't really care, like your Bitcoin is equal to my Bitcoin, so we don't care from where it goes or who created that. And basically, I think that the very interesting thing here is how the first use case was something like with art, where you have like pieces of art, you have digital artists creating a new revenue stream where they can go online and sell their work, be it music, be it digital models, or be it an image, JPEG, or an ape, or a cat, or something like that. And what I think it's really interesting is that what if it's not something like that, but it's something else? Like, what if it is a game? What if it is a house? Or what if it is like a debt obligation? And I think it's really a new boom or a new revolution where it will unlock. It's something that started to happen like in the last 2 years. It will unlock a lot of different problems and a lot of different things that people will really spend the next bear market thinking about it and understanding. So I'll probably just skip through a lot of things. And thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any more doubts, I'll probably have the presentation online in some fashion. So if you check the other slides, or if you want to talk about something, find me in the end of the event, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you. So thanks.
Thank you a lot, Jose.
No problem.
To Finium, to you. Sorry, again. So thank you a lot, Jose.